not present. Mayor Melham.
Here.
Ms. Nettleford.
Here.
Mr. Venero.
Here.
Mr. Zangari is not present. Mr. Guyan.
Here.
Mr. Di Lorenzo.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Marinello.
Here. No. No.
Staff for pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sunshine notice.
Pursuant to the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 PL 1975, notice of this meeting was published in the July 20th, 2020 edition of the Star Ledger and the July 21st, 2020 edition of the Belleville Times. A copy of the annual meeting notice has been posted on the Belleville Town Hall bulletin board.
Any communications? No comments. For me, approval of minutes. Can I get a motion for the special meeting for July 20th? And I believe we're going to have the June 2020 meeting minutes at our next meeting?
Correct.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Make a motion.
Second. Roll call.
Chairwoman Inaugurato.
Yes.
Mr. Banda.
Yes.
Mr. Gold.
Yes.
Mr. Graziano.
Yes.
Mayor Melham.
Yes.
Ms. Nettleford.
Yes.
Mr. Venero.
Take no part.
Mr. Guyan.
Yes.
Our bill list dated September 8th. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Did we memorialize, we just did all three at the same time?
We just did the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So Brian, motion.
Okay.
Second.
Chairwoman Inaugurato.
Yes.
Mr. Banda.
Yes.
Mr. Gold.
Take no part.
Mr. Graziano.
Yes.
Mayor Melham.
Yes.
Ms. Nettleford.
Abstain.
Mr. Venero.
Yes.
Mr. Guyan.
Yes.
Approved.
Resolutions to be memorialized. First one, PB 2201, which is 605, 609 Washington Avenue and 174 Graylock Parkway.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Roll call.
Chairwoman Inaugurato.
Yes.
Mr. Banda.
Yes.
Mr. Gold.
Take no part.
Mr. Graziano.
Yes.
Mayor Melham.
Yes.
Ms. Nettleford.
Yes.
Mr. Venero.
Yes.
Mr. Guyan.
Yes.
PB 2111, 229 Main Street.
Make a motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Chairwoman Inaugurato.
Yes.
Mr. Banda.
Yes.
Mr. Gold.
Yes.
Mr. Graziano.
Yes.
Mayor Melham.
Yes.
Ms. Nettleford.
Yes.
Mr. Venero.
Yes.
Mr. Guyan.
Yes.
Approved.
This resolution for extension of September 23rd, 23 by the New Jersey Permit Extension Act of 2020, 30 Washington Avenue, GR Masonry Group.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Chairwoman Inaugurato.
Yes.
Mr. Banda.
Yes.
Mr. Gold.
Take no part.
Mr. Graziano.
Yes.
Mayor Melham.
Yes.
Ms. Nettleford.
Abstain.
Mr. Venero.
Yes.
Mr. Guyan.
Yes.
Approved.
All right, new business. PB 2208, is 52, 522, 554 Cortlandt Street. First witness.
Thank you. I'm Robert.
Sworn in.
It's Robert Cozzarelli, Cozzarelli.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be to the best of your ability?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
For everyone here, I'm Robert Cozzarelli, and I'm an architect, and I've been practicing architecture since I graduated in 1979. I had my own office in 1986. I'm a member of the New Jersey State Board of Architects. I've been president of AIA New Jersey. I've sat on the AIA National Board, and currently I'm, vice chairman, treasurer of NCARB Region 2. That's the National Council of Architecture Registration Boards. I'm tired. But I've enjoyed it. And one other note I'd like to say tonight, I'm married 43 years today. And I told my wife, I said, I got to spend it tonight with you.
Great thing.
So anyway, tonight it's a fun, a nice presentation. This is, what we're showing tonight is, you want to What we're presenting tonight is the proposed Belleville athletic training facility. And it's, as you heard, it's located at 522 Cortlandt Street, Belleville. For your own knowledge, many of us remember this property as the Work-A-Light for National Lighting. And what you're going to see here now on drawing A001, we have an aerial map explaining where the building is located for your own benefit. The actual building, we have it's shaded in gray. The athletic facility is in white, and the remainder of the building is in gray. There's a rather large parking lot to the east, and there's a smaller parking lot to the north of the property. The actual building is approximately 80,000 square feet, and the proposed area that the Belleville Athletic Training Facility will occupy is approximately a little over 24,000 square feet. What I'd like to really emphasize here is that you have the light industrial in gray, and the entrances to all those properties or the areas that are being used for light industrial come from the Stevens Street and Bella Vista. The children, the school district children will enter from Cortlandt Street. There's a side entrance there, and they will not commingle the two groups. We were very, very careful when we were laying this out in the design. Let's move along to the next drawing, A002. And again, we just enlarged the plan. This is actually the beginning of some of the working drawings. It's a life safety plan to show the exiting. So again, we took great care to make sure that it meets code to those standards, and no one's going to be in a location where they can't get out, which is The other thing is the building before we looked at this project. The entire building's sprinklered, and that's a huge benefit. The fun part about the project is that you take something that was used for light industrial, and you're going to use it for educational use. But it's like an adaptive reuse, which is very cool to do. In this latter part of my career, I'm finding more and more of that happening. And some of the other projects that we've done in town, we converted an industrial building into a medical facility, which is fascinating. So you're going to see more and more of that, and it's encouraging, that's happening. But this drawing is known as A100, and this is showing the proposed athletic, equipment that's going to be placed in here. And we have with us tonight is Joe Flynn from the school board architect. He could talk about the equipment, but real briefly, you're going to have 4 batting cages in this one large area. I think this was about 11,000 square feet. Yes, but there's also like a running track. But remember, this is for training, and that's real important to keep that in mind. We also had a little rock wall, area. The kids will start to get strength from, pulling and climbing the, the rock walls. We're emphasizing a little bit of soccer here, and they play with a heavier ball, from what I understand, when they practice. So you're getting a lot of different activities, and there's actually three lanes on this side of the plan, so they can sprint or learn how to come out of the starting block, etc. So, all that's happening, or just simply jog. And the batting cages, they're well enclosed, hit the ball as hard as you want. It's not going to go out of the area. The other thing we'll come on the Cortlandt Street side. I should have took you through from the front door. But if you go through the front door, there's actually an ADA ramp. As you walk down the ramp, brings you into where the AD or the director would sit. And in this area was where people will congregate and get ready to go to the specific area that they want to use within this facility. You see the circles, something that's been sorely missing in the town for quite a while is a place to wrestle. I like this a lot, because I was one of the first guys to wrestle in the town. I'm an old guy.
It was wrestling room.
Yeah, but it's fun to see that this is happening again. And I would tease my son and say, I got one match left in me. So I may be dead after, but I got one match left. The other thing we did is we have a little aerobics room, or even for cheering. So we're really using the building and the area for a lot of different activities. When you do enter the building, there's all this equipment here that the school's going to be putting in, and everything from treadmills, rowing machines, cycling, and we emphasized another area for running, and which you can also do rope training. And what's really cool is we actually squeezed in a golf simulator machine. So it's all there. On the other side of off the parking lot, to help get the equipment in, there's an overhead door which brings it, into the facility. The mats can be rolled in very easily, or any other heavy equipment. There's an area for a trainer, and we did do a small little locker room with a couple of showers, and there are some ADA restrooms. Everything's ADA accessible throughout the building. And a small area for coaches. And we also carved out an area for parent waiting area. Because the last thing you want is parents standing on the edge while the child's being in some kind of athletic training area. But again, to date, that's what's going on. There's all the cameras surveillance cameras are being installed. It's a specific entrance only for this facility is here. And Joe, I don't know if you want to speak at all about the. Yeah, come on, just he's your board of your district architect.
Your last name, sir?
Flynn, F-L-Y-N-N.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be to the best of your ability?
Yes.
Thank you.
Shall I share my credentials also, or it's up to you? I can do it in 30 seconds or less. So, I am a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. I have a master's in education and a doctoral in educational leadership. I practice architecture and was in the education field for combined 30 plus years. I'm currently with H2M Architects and Engineers, which is an educational, one of the markets that they're in is educational market, practicing architecture for K-12 and higher ed for over close to 25 years. I'm with H2M 2 years, had my own practice for 10 in between. So, gives you a little synopsis. So, Bob actually shared everything about the facility. I think one of the things that is unique about the facility is the fact that Every space in that facility has an opportunity for every student that has an interest of participating, whether it's aerobics, wrestling. Bob so eloquently put, I wrestled in high school and I wrestled collegiately, so seeing a large amount, yeah, we might. Although I was gonna get some ice cream down with the police officers, that would have been really good. But I think the uniqueness of the space allows an opportunity for the students of Belleville to be able to participate at levels that one could never even imagine. So being able to be engaged with team sports, individual sports, train on their own, be able to use it for those students both throughout the day and be able to gain the knowledge and experience they need to be what I would consider productive citizens for the town, the city of Belleville, and then the community at large. I think that's probably the most interesting thing about the facility. You don't see it an awful lot. What happens is there's a lot of private groups that will generate those types of facilities and then charge organizations to utilize those facilities. You have a unique opportunity here for the students of Belleville to be able to utilize that for now and for years to come. So,
Word travels quickly too. I'll tell you, while designing it, I started getting calls saying, Bobby, what are you doing? And they were asking specifically about this building. So the word is out on the street, big time, and you guys should be extremely proud of the project. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
When is it open? When do you feel it could be operational?
October, end of October, we kind of still talk to Mr. Di Lorenzo, go over a few things, maybe in November.
Is Bubble on the building or lease it?
No, they lease it.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I have questions. Just minor. I know everybody's really excited about the inside. I want to just do housekeeping on the outside. This is a Section 31 review, right?
Mayor, do you want to give a little of who you are?
Who you are? Why?
Oh,
Tell them who you are.
Okay, I'm a planner, and I did not review this. This is an application for Section 31 review to the planning board that doesn't need site plan approval, but comes before the board for comments from the board and questions. And so far you've talked about the interior, which sounds amazing, and I guess I just want to ask if you have any details on the exterior, if there's any improvements, signage, things you're doing on the outside.
Thank you, because pardon me, because I did forget. If you've been by the building recently, it's been painted. Just from a building standpoint, it's looking so much better already. Complete new roofs were put on, new HVAC. The parking lot is still a work in progress, but it's going to happen. It was approved a while ago to improve that lot. So it's being staged, or I should say phased, and that's going to happen as well. You're going to have a specific sign, at the entrance where the athletic facility is. There's going to be an awning specifically stating this is the Belleville Athletic Facility. So, and there's proper lighting, it's been installed throughout this building and on the exterior of the building. So if there's anything else, please just let us know.
Any shrubbery?
I think we can definitely talk about, I know there was some shrubbery, new shrubbery planned for the parking lot area, but we can speak to the owner, we can absolutely do that too. And controlled shrubbery, so it doesn't get, out of hand.
I just don't want it to look like the preschool, because it looks like a factory still.
Yeah. I encourage you to give us ideas if you like, but we can also, work with Mr. Di Lorenzo and Mr. Harrods on that and figure out how you want to handle it. Hi, by the way. You never met you before.
That's right. I think kind of following up on the landscaping,
Yeah.
anything that you could add to soften the building, foundation landscaping, say the parking lot base, that would be beneficial. And I think you mentioned HVAC, screening those units isn't very important. All other applicants are asked to do that, so.
Can't see it from
Well,
the street.
that's why-
I'm telling you now, it's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then is there ventilation changes for inside the
Yes,
rec area?
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there'll be
It's all-
ventilation
it's all-
improvements?
It's all to code. You know, we have to design to code, and that's code compliance, and make sure that you have the adequate air, HVAC, air circulation in the building, heating and cooling as per the, educational standards that are required with children. It's all being taken care of. Yeah. We can follow.
Any other comments?
Good.
I'd like to open up to the public. Any comments, Mr. Sheldon?
Can I just speak from here? I think I speak loudly enough, I don't have to go to the microphone.
Just as long as you can be.
All right, I'll move just a little bit closer. Just for the record, my name is Michael Sheldon, 47 Floyd Street. Mr. Cozzarelli mentioned a few moments ago that it was his hope that this project would be ready to go in October. I just want to quickly, for the record, point out what has happened this year. March 15th, beware the Ides of March, Dr. Tomko had a community forum at the high school about this project. Not only to get community buy-in, but to get other ideas for what should go into this facility. At the last Board of Education meeting, August 15th, and the video record is there if you want to check it, Dr. Tomko said that the project was essentially finished as of August 15th, and that he was expecting students to begin using it within the next few days. So I'm trying to reconcile what Mr. Cozzarelli said about this project possibly being ready to go in October with what Dr. Tomko said 3 weeks ago, that it was ready for the ribbon cutting ceremony. So try to figure that out if you can. But I want to bring to the board's attention a really critical factor about this project. At the last board meeting, August 15th, I brought to the board's attention that this building, 522 Cortlandt, former National Lighting Company, is on the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection active contamination site list. I have their timetable here for the remediation of the site. They are hoping to have the site remediated by June 14th, 2029. Kids are already in that facility, presumably. And why is this site on the active contamination site? It's because of its former industrial usage. There are unacceptable levels, according to the DEP reports. I can provide them to the board if you want, but there are hundreds and hundreds of pages of those reports. There are unacceptable levels of TCE, which is trichloroethylene, and PCE, which is tetrachloroethylene. Both chemicals are known to cause birth defects in pregnant women and are known carcinogens. In fact, most state health departments will not allow children to go anywhere near a site that has known above acceptable levels of either TCE or PCE. So here we are putting our kids in a facility that is on an active contamination site. By the way, Mr. Venero, you asked, is it being leased or is it the board owns it? It is correct, it's being leased. We're spending well over $500,000 a year for the lease on this building. As Mr. Cozzarelli said, the whole building is about 80,000 square feet. With the board, if I remember the number correctly, we're using 25,000 square feet of the property and paying about $20 per square foot. So it's well over $500,000 a year with CPI increases in each year. And it's the usual business where the lease agreement is five-year lease agreements with nearly automatic renewals. And the reason for the 5-year lease agreements, if you go through the state school law, when you have lease agreements of 5 years, you bypass voter approval, voter referendum. So that's why these 5-year chunks, whether it's the horn blower, the Dorso pre-K school, all that business, everything is being done in 5-year installments. But you, as the planning board, be ever mindful about how projects are going to affect the future of this township, its population, especially its children. I think it is incumbent upon you to contact Dr. Tomko. And by the way, when I brought all this up at the last board meeting, he was very disparaging. He said, well, you can tell it's election season. Mr. Sheldon is doing political grandstanding. I said, no, Dr. Tomko, I have a legitimate concern. And I started to read to him what the DEP findings were and the health guidance. And at the end of my little tirade, he said, all right, Mr. Sheldon, we'll have our own people, we'll hire our own people to do some additional testing to make sure it's safe. So he acknowledged on record that, yes, there is a reason for concern. I think as the planning board, being ever mindful of the welfare of our population, you need to reach out to Dr. Tomko and ask him to explain to you officially, formally, what's going on with the site contamination issue. What is he going to do to remediate this in light of all of the DEP findings? And again, I'll give you, if you want this for the record, I'll gladly provide it to you. But you can see for yourself that they list that the site's contaminated, all of their steps to do initial remediation, additional follow-up, but you look at the timetable and they're hoping to have things up to standards by June 14th, 2029. But kids are in there right now, so please, I don't want, obviously none of us want children to start to get sick and God forbid even worse. But down the road, if things should move in that direction, when the lawyers come into the picture, these video records will be available and they're going to be asking boards, elected officials were made aware that there might be issues and you turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to this. And now we've got kids with major illnesses, possibly cancer. There's now an issue of criminal culpability. So with that said, I think even though under the state law, under the School Construction and Finance Act, as Ms. Bucci-Carter pointed out, you have really no say in the projects that the Board of Education engages in. It's all up to the Department of Education to give site plan approval. As long as a project is consistent with your master plan, no one in this township can stop a Board of Education project. And I'm obviously all in support of any athletic facilities for our kids. But here is another ill-advised project, in my opinion. I know space is at a premium, but boy, we're putting our kids in known
No one would want
sites.
our children to get hurt. And as stated, we can't, if we said no, it can go on. It's only a courtesy that they come before us.
You would be doing a CYA in that case, as this board saying you have some concerns, some issues have been brought to your attention about possible site contamination, to get an absolute promise. It's one thing for Dr. Tomko to say to me, Mr. Sheldon, right, we'll do our own testing, but it's another matter for him to say to you as a board that he will assure you, will promise you that testing will be done and you will be provided with those results. So I ask you collectively to reach out to Dr. Tomko, ask him to explain to you in more detail what is the business about the possible site contamination and what is the Board of Ed going to do to safeguard both children and staff members who will be using this facility. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Frantantoni?
Can I speak from here also?
Sure, as long as she can hear you.
Got some Mr. Frantantoni, you want my credentials? I'm a contractor for 50 years. I'm a former Belleville Chamber of Commerce and Vice President for 26 years. Trustee at the Passaic River Coalition for 18 years. Commissioner in the Township of Belleville. And I'll be married 59 years in a couple of weeks. So with those credentials out of the way, I won't reiterate with Michael Sheldon. If we're concerned about our kids, I don't know why we're putting them on a contaminated site without doing the proper due diligence. And in all due respect to the chairman, the planning board it's mandatory, all capital projects have to come before the planning board for review and recommendation. Yes, they don't have to comply, they can bypass your recommendation, but you people can reject the project. And in this case, you've got plenty of good reasons. Number one, first of all, it's such a sham, like he stated, Mr. Tomko said, they already did the thing. They already did it. What a joke, they're coming here. Can we do this project that we already did? Isn't this an embarrassment to you people sitting up there that they're doing this to you?
At least this time they came.
This is-
Previous,
Well,
didn't show up.
previous, they had to come because citizens had to make the noise to bring them here. And not only them, other projects come here after the fact. Aren't you people up there embarrassed that they take you for rubber stamps? They build a project and then, oh, we want to hear some contest, oh, we plan and, oh, we're going to do, they already did it. This is an absolute disgrace. The township of Belleville, and now I'm a technological idiot, but I'm learning. You're now with technology, you have the ability to go online, and I hate TV, so I go online, I watch other planning boards in other towns. They are professionals. They are, I checked, look at Bloomfield. I went on, was it Newton last year once. What professionals? Number one, they all show up in suit and ties, well-dressed, they look like professionals, and they act like professionals. They question the engineers, the architect in details. They want to know things.
What does this have to do with the
We
project?
don't get all these.
What does this have to do with the project?
It has to do with the project because basically, according to the law, Mr. Marinello, it's illegal. You don't come
What's
before
illegal? Not wearing
planning
a
board
suit to the
for
planning
review
board?
and recommendation after you already built it.
That's a great point. It's understood. It's
Yeah.
already happened. Done.
Well,
They're not in it yet, but they've already built it out. Well, I don't understand, what is your comment about it? You don't like, we
My
all get
comment
that.
is,
You
because
agree,
you
you
heard me,
think,
I've been in this town 55 years,
Yes.
worked in this town for 60 years. I've been coming to planning boards for over 4 decades. And the last 20 years, it's a disgrace.
what is?
It's a disgrace that what's going on, that they come here after a project is built. If I was
Okay.
sitting up there, what's the audacity? You come to me, ask me to approve something
We're
that
not
you
being
already
asked to
built?
approve it. We're not being asked to approve
And you're an attorney, and you think that's legal?
it.
And you think that's moral? And you think it's proper as an attorney? I'll ask you.
I'm
You
not-
ask me, I'm asking you.
Whatever you might think of my morals and whatever I think is proper, I only have to concern myself with what the law is.
Well,
And I know that the dress code of the planning board is not under consideration for this Board of Ed application.
well, my mother and father taught us you dress for the occasion,
Yes.
okay? And so when you're in a position of authority like this, you should look at it, you know. And just so you know, Mr. Marinello, we'll go back 30 years or 40 years, front page headlines, I have the newspapers, myself, my name, and the attorneys at the time, we had fights about a similar project, a capital. The plan to build a town hall. Nope, the town attorney at the time says, I was wrong. You're not an attorney, Mr. Frantantoni. We went back and forth, the headlines for 2 months, Frantantoni versus Zinner, Zinner versus Frantantoni. It turned out I was correct and they had to cancel the project. So much for attorney's expertise. So all I'm asking you as an attorney, you should advise the board, this is the moot question. You should tell them, they come before you, they insulted you. They already built the project and now they're coming. That's your duty as an attorney.
And this is nothing
You're
to do
supposed
with
to make sure the law is adhered to.
That's what we're doing here. We're having a hearing.
What, for a project that's already done.
And to which we had no ability to stop.
They're an autonomous body.
Well then, right now, if you people have the courage to vote no, and then let them override it. Vote no because they didn't do it in the proper.
But there's no
according to the
vote.
law.
There is no vote.
There's nothing
There
to
is
vote
no
on.
vote.
It's for review and recommendation,
That
right?
doesn't mean you say yes and no.
Yeah, well, I would say, if I was up there, I would say no, and I would give them recommendations that you come back before you go any further and ask for our approval or recommendation contact the state and see what the state of this contamination is. These are our children that you're putting in there.
I
These are our
understand what
kids
you're
in
saying.
there.
I understand what you're saying. You make a good point about making sure that the property is not contaminated or a danger to the children. But one thing I'm pretty certain of, as the one with the law degree, is that it's not our purview to make that decision. There is the state of New Jersey, there is the Board of Education. I have no idea where on the property the contamination is. It may be nowhere near where these children are going. I have nothing, and this board is not doing its own investigation on the environmental contamination of this property. It's not within our purview, we have no right to do it, and we're not gonna do it.
Well, just to intercede here, we have a recommendation we can make. So I feel we should make a recommendation, have the property checked. I mean, I think
You
that's
can
the
make
least
that
we should do.
recommendation.
If these people are bringing up the point that this is contaminated, I think we should make a recommendation to the board. You guys should look into this.
Well, I think, yes, I don't disagree with you on that. That's certainly within your power to do. But it's certainly not within our jurisdiction
We
to
don't make the
do
final
anything
call, but I
about
think
the
that's something we should
environmental
do.
contamination.
But, and through the chair, isn't it, we follow process, right? So all of these plans, everything that has been, it goes through our office, which is under Mr. Di Lorenzo. So my assumption, as every step of the way, all of this stuff has been or being addressed. Is that right or wrong?
Well, it should be, but it's certainly not being addressed by the board. That's not.
No, right, but I'm saying, but it's following.
Somebody should.
It's following.
It's following building code.
It's following
yes,
building
following
code.
building
Right, that's
code,
my
but as for the
Mr. Di
makeup.
Lorenzo, could you
Yes.
make a comment on that?
Well, environmentally, we'd have to ask Mr. Tomko to give us an evaluation on the property, if they did a study or not, and see what the contamination is. We can do that through the building process. That's not an issue.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Will you do that?
Yes.
So I have a
That's
question.
something we can recommend, right?
So wait,
We
wait,
can
wait,
recommend-
wait.
We're gonna ask him through,
One
what's going
second.
on, and let him get us any paperwork we have, and I'm sure the state's gonna want something too.
Right.
Right.
So now, I mean, do we understand what is that the actual process that the school had to go through in terms of the environmental reporting and the situation that it is? And what did they report about at their meeting? And we didn't see that. So what is their stance on that? What was the recommendation by the environmental company, and where are they with that?
Do you know anything?
Do we know anything
Listen,
about that?
my understanding is there's been an environmental report, and it was issued to Dr. Tomko. And quite frankly, nothing gets this far unless, if it was really contaminated beyond the point of being, not health, safety, and welfare for any human being, you couldn't notify for it. So,
What
yeah,
are the
but let me
safeguards?
just say, yes, everything should be transparent. Everything should be handed in, and reviewed. And we'll hand it in to Mr. Di Lorenzo. There was some simple, straightforward cleanup, just painting the interior. And I had talked to Mr. Di Lorenzo about that, clean the interior, which he knew that was going on. So there's been progress in that regard, under a permit that was issued. So at this point, it's, it's athletic flooring needs to be put in, and their equipment. That's it. That's really, everything that's left to do here. And those drawings are here, and they'll be submitted to Mr. Di Lorenzo for his review, along with all the environmental reports that are out there. And I think, Dr. Tomko initiated that he would get his own independent, investigation, environmental investigation. I think that's fantastic. That's what you want to hear. So, yeah, Mr. President, I think it is the right thing to do, to make sure that the building is safe. And there's a continuous monitoring of the building, environmental monitoring. And that's done properly. And that's why there's a sign outside that says this is a DEP or, property. It's there for that reason, and by law, whatever, it has to be out there. It has to be there, stating that. So I think, everyone's doing what they're supposed to do as far as how it should be done, the process. and, you know, continue to make the recommendations, you know, and,
Is the rest of the building occupied?
yeah, yes,
I mean, I know you pointed out the different
Yeah,
uses, but are they being occupied?
yes, there's one gentleman here, and it's called Pegasus Wheels. He sells all these high-end rims for cars. It's incredible. So, you see that. Workalite still has a small operation here. And there's a place called Shashin International, essentially. It's candy supplies, liquor, I think, you know, he sells all the bodegas. His trucks come in and out, and,
Perishable food and stuff like
yeah,
that.
that's it. And there's this unit here, a smaller one, it's actually just for storage of transporting contents of homes from one area to another. This gentleman here on the end, Unit 7, extremely interesting. All he sells is wine packing material. That's it, boxes and the containers to hold wine. You talk about a niche business.
So there's no intensive uses left on the
No,
property?
no.
And the zone, Marianne, doesn't allow heavy industrial uses anymore? So we're not gonna get it once they come in for a variance for it?
That's
and
correct.
Somebody can raise the alarm then?
Yeah, so I think, honestly, everyone made fantastic points tonight, and this is where it should go. You know, everyone should be, you know, do their best to make sure the codes are all about health, safety, and welfare. We meet that, that's what you want to do. And we can't get a drawing approved with, you know, a permit unless we meet the standards that are within, you know, the codes and regulations that govern the state. You know, the International Building Code, et cetera, and there's all other codes that fall under it. You know, and they're there for a reason, for us to follow them as professionals. And that's why we're licensed as architects and engineers, for those reasons. So,
I'll just finish up, I thank you for doing that, and for you, Mr. Marinello, our own planner asked questions and made recommendations. That's the purpose of this meeting. So I hope one of you, as Mr. Venero brought up a good point, start asking questions. Make the recommendation that the Board of Education has to get clearance from the Department of Community Affairs or the state, whatever departments, that this is not a danger. Because these kids may be inside playing with this. But if you know kids, go to any school. I have kids. I got 40 nieces and nephews. What do kids do? They go inside the place and then they congregate outside. They might be sitting on the ground and hanging out and maybe wrestling outside with, after the game and all. And they'd be out there on this grass or pavement on the contaminated soil. So I hope you make some recommendations that'll open their eyes. And I hope one of you will have the guts to say, next time, you and anybody else, follow law, come to us before you start construction. I mean, this has got to stop. This is an embarrassment. Thank you. I hope you take some of my advice tonight and do something about it.
Mr. Di Lorenzo, you have the action, right?
Yes, we can do that, I got it.
Any other comments?
We'll just recommend they follow environmental procedures.
And we'll put it on the record that that's our suggestion. What they do with it, that's up to them, but I like our name saying this is what we recommend.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
That's great. That they
Let me
make the
get it
outside of the
straight, 'cause I'm
building,
gonna be
so
ready
they can look nice.
You're recommending the project, but you're recommending to them that they make sure that they follow whatever their obligations are regarding the DEP and
Right.
the
Yes.
environmental contamination.
Which I'm sure they are, but we just want to
Right, yeah.
recommend that, make
Yeah.
sure that it is
Just
being
going on
done.
record for it.
That's, okay, that's good.
I'm with you.
You want to sign off?
And it would have been nice to come to, before it was done.
It's not
do what?
done.
It's not
For
for
the
It's
next
not
one,
done.
It looks like a great project, great for Belleville, great for our students.
It's not done and it's not occupied. There's nobody know how, no way.
As well as the shrubbery.
Yeah, they make the outside look presentable and inviting. Do they have dedicated parking or not?
not yet, that's what I said, the
It's
parking
working
lots are
A
work in progress because there's a lot to fix. Just fixing this building up from where it was, it's to the point where the school could come in and look at it and say, yes,
Is
this
this
is...
a brownfield project?
No, not to my knowledge. I am not an environmental engineer, but there's reports out there that can explain what the project, I'm sorry, what the property is, and that's what should be turned into Mr. Dillon.
Now, Mr. Di Lorenzo goes through with what he's planning on going through. Are the kids still gonna be allowed in there by October?
No, what Mr. Di Lorenzo, it's really the key issue is the CO.
That trigger holds everything up.
He'll come to me and say, you still have to do X, Y, and Z, or this is deficient, or I want this, this part of the code is stating that I want pull stations for, within the building. Things like that.
Any other comments? No. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care of that.
Thank you. We're going to take 5 minutes.
Two letters regarding two of the applications that were previously scheduled for tonight. That is PB 2118, 524 Union Avenue. They asked to carry the application to the October 13th, 2022 meeting without further notice. Time is waived?
It is.
Okay. So that will be carried. If anyone is here for that application, that one will be rescheduled for October 13th. No further notice being necessary. Also, PB 2205, 388 and 390 Cortlandt Street. That one also received a similar letter asking that that matter be adjourned to October 13th, 2022 regular meeting without further notice. Time being waived again.
Yes.
Council. And that one also will be carried by the board to the October 13th date. So, Ms. Secretary, please note them both on for that date. We can now go on to the next application.
Okay, the application before the board is PB 2203, which is 41 Clinton Street. Are you ready?
Yes, I am, Madam Chairman. Shall I proceed?
Yes, please.
Madam Chair, lady, members of the board, council's name is Robert Gassione. The firm is Gassione Tomko, 524 Union Avenue in Belleville. I represent the applicant in this matter, Timothy Pullen. My client resides at and is the owner of 41 Clinton Street. My client is seeking minor subdivision approval in order to relocate the property line between lots 25 and 26 on block 6702. If successfully, plans to construct a single-family dwelling on what will be lot 2601. The existing two-family will remain on proposed lot 2502. Straight there. 2501. 2601 and 2501. Subject property is located in RC Townhouse Residential Zone. In order for this application to be approved, there are a number of bulk variances. Just about all the variances are as a result of the 10,000 minimum lot area requirement. The homes in the area, but many of which are on similar lots, don't comply based on the zoning at 10,000 square feet. The witness you'll hear from are Tim Pullen, who resides in the existing structure and would like to move into the proposed new one-family, and Peter Steck, the planner. I'd like to call my first witness, Mr. Pullen.
He's testifying as a fact witness, correct? Not as a, he's not testifying as an expert, he's testifying as
Absolutely not.
Right, okay, all right. Please raise your right hand. Swear the testimony shall give you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Sorry, Mr.
That's no, it's fine.
It's happened.
That's so,
It's happened, I
We'll
can't.
share.
We'll share, all right, perfect. Okay.
Is the spelling of your last name, sir?
Yes, it's P-U-L-L-E-N.
Thank you.
full and what is your home address?
41 Clinton Street, Belleville.
And what is your occupation?
I'm a public servant with the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey.
And for how long have you lived in Belleville?
I've lived in Belleville for 13 years.
And for how long have you lived in the residence in question?
I've lived there for 8 years.
And what is the current use of that property at 41 Clinton?
It's a two-family home.
And which floor do you live on?
I live on the second floor.
And is the first floor currently occupied?
No, it is not.
And why is it not occupied?
The tenant moved out.
And who resides on the second floor with you?
My wife and 2 young sons.
And do your sons attend the school system in Belleville?
Yes, my oldest, who's 10, attends school 4, and my 6-year-old attends St. Peter's.
St. Peter's being very close to where your residence is.
I walk them to school every day.
And what is it you're seeking approval to do?
I'm seeking to build on the, just a very modest, single-family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath on the adjacent lot that I own.
And you're seeking a subdivision in order to be able to obtain the approval to do that, is that correct?
That's correct.
And if this is approved, will you move into the new 1-family?
Yes.
And then you will keep the 2-family?
Correct.
And you will rent that out?
That's the goal.
I have no further questions to this witness, Madam Chair Lady. No, yes, sir.
Does anyone on the board have any questions of this witness?
Is that all we got? That all testimony, or the planner's testimony?
I'm sorry?
You have a planner?
I have a planner. He will be the next witness.
Okay. Wait till after that.
Oh, is the proposed house going to be a 2-story, 2.5-story, or 3-bedroom,
Yes.
or single family?
Yes, single family.
Yes.
I have a few questions on the report. I'm going to start with the minor questions first.
Mayor, do you want to come up, or
Yeah.
this way they can hear you?
Minor questions first. There appears to be an encroachment of the adjacent shed in the backyard onto your property. And there's also an issue of the house next door to the vacant lot, that portion of the lot that you want to build on. Seems that it looks like it's on the property line, it's not clear. It looks like the overhang may be very closer than the measurements indicate to the building that you're proposing to build. Those are 2 issues, and I want to know.
What issues? I'm sorry. What issues? What do you mean by issues?
The shed of the neighbor is on this property, your client's property. And it appears that it's possible that the overhang of the neighbor's house, of the eaves of the house, is over the property line as well. And I'm wondering if you've spoken to that neighbor, and if what the result of that was. Because it's been in the report, and the report's been around since April.
Yeah.
Yeah, answer my
Sure. So Jose and Yvonne own the property to my right. We're very good neighbors. Their children use mine, actually a lot, and play with my children. The shed that you're referencing, the back, is slightly onto the property, and Yvonne, actually I spoke to Yvonne and Jose about it. And the thing that I said, essentially if we're successful, move the shed of just about 2 feet into their property line, because you can see on the back, it's right there. And we spoke about it, and they're fine. I mean, they recognize that it is coming a little bit to the property. Also, regarding the eave coming over to the property line, it's a little tricky. They actually put a very small 1-foot footer along the property line at the bottom. And if you actually stand over and look up over the eave, it doesn't encroach, at least my opinion. It's very narrow, and it comes right down to the footing. Actually, I actually watched their runoff, because they had a runoff issue with some of their water, and it drops, right onto that footing that they put in
question is, and maybe for your attorney, for you, do you have a home plan? Do you have an expectation of what you will be building, and do you have it here to present to the board this evening?
No, he does not have the plan to present. This is a subdivision application, and we're looking for bulk variances. Obviously, the board can ask to see architectural plans, but we weren't presenting them as such.
There's no questions.
But again, they're not required based on this kind of application. But we're looking for variances, and the board can make a request.
Mr. Burns?
I think I would like to see the plan before anything, because you're asking for final approval to actually construct this building that we have no clue what it's gonna look like.
I understand that request.
I would definitely like to see the plan before we would actually say yes to anything. That's just my opinion on it.
Obviously, we're looking for an approval. And if you want to see plans before we can get an approval, Mike, I'll discuss that with my client, but I would like to proceed with my planner who is here tonight. And then, if at the end of that testimony you still think you want to see plans, I would assume my client would be willing to do that.
Any other comments?
I have a question. On the application, you have,
That's a mistake.
That was easy.
by the way, I use that answer all the time when I get asked that question before I even know the
Which part, the whole thing?
I just wanted to speed it up.
Okay, yeah, that's all right.
Through the chair, I did have a question or two. I hear,
The planner?
yeah, the planner, I'm sorry, let the planner talk. That's right. Let the planner talk.
Okay. Well, you got a question?
That's okay, Mr. Gates.
Okay.
It might get answered.
I think it will. Let's call Mr. Steck.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be to the best of your ability?
Yes,
S-T-E-C-K, right?
correct.
Mr. Steck, would you review your qualifications?
Yes, I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a master's in city and regional planning. I was licensed in 1976, and my license is still effective. And I've testified here in approximately 200 other municipalities as well.
accept your qualifications.
Thank you.
So Mr. Steck is accepted as an expert in the field of plans. In preparation for this testimony, what steps did you take, Mr. Steck?
I reviewed the application materials. I was on the subject property on 2 occasions, took some photographs, and met with the owner, and took an analysis of the surrounding neighborhood, as well as looking at the master plan and zoning ordinance.
Can you comment on the fact that you rode by with me?
That makes it 3 times.
Would you review the subject property and describe it, please?
Yes, I have a handout that might be helpful.
You need one?
I got one, yes.
How's that, Tom?
It's slippery, so be careful.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Brian?
I was actually taking a session.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Who's got time?
Thanks, Chris.
Tom?
No, wait.
yeah.
Wait, take that back. Let me get back.
Right.
They've marked it previously as P.
Yeah, you want to show them?
Now that the board has your exhibit, Counselor, you want to mark that as A1?
Yes, let's mark it
Okay.
A1, yes.
What I'll do is just identify A1 briefly, and then I'll refer to it more when I go through my testimony. I'll just walk through the pages. So A1 was prepared by me. It's dated today, September 8th,
and in the upper right-hand corner are pages P1 through P6. First page is an aerial photograph where I've highlighted the subject property. To the right, I've highlighted the existing conditions survey. Below that, lower right-hand corner is where the tax maps. So this appears as two properties on the tax maps. The second page are photographs that were taken by me on September 1st, and I believe that they accurately depict existing conditions. The first one is a panoramic photograph from across the street, and so things are a little distorted, and there's less distortion below that in the row of photographs. So lower left is standing on the proposed new house lot looking across Clinton. The center photograph at the bottom is looking at the proposed new house site. And on the right-hand side, you see the right-hand side that has a paved parking area. The next page is standing in the backyard of the proposed new lot and looking toward the rear. So those houses are on 25, 25, 25, and 30-foot wide lots that back up to us. The photo below that is going across the street, and again, it's a panoramic photo, so it's a little bit distorted. All those properties are owned by one person, Mr. Leo Marino. The next page has a concept plan showing two alternatives for the proposed new single-family house and a photo of the type of architecture that the applicant is considering, but we don't have architectural plans. The next page I'll be spending some time on, P5. It's an analysis of the neighborhood, particularly the areas that's outlined in blue. And then finally, I wanted to reference an application that appeared before another board on page P6. This was a 25-foot wide lot, just to illustrate standards that have been accepted, although this application was not a subdivision application. It was just for dimensional variances before the Board of Adjustment. So back to the beginning, I'll describe the subject property, if I may. Please do. Okay. So this property consists of two tax map lots, as shown in the lower right-hand corner of A1, the first page. In fact, the applicant does get separate tax bills for each lot, so they're treated, at least from tax purposes, as two lots, but they are at the moment in common ownership. The house that's on the property now is a two-family house, and it's the 20-foot wide lot on the right-hand side comes very close to the property line, to the building line of that house. And again, as the applicant said, he's lived in this a while. He lives on the second floor, and while the tenant left the first floor, he's doing some renovations to that. The biggest open space is on the left or south side of the property, where there's, at least in the front, a 30-foot distance between the house and the adjacent property line. The survey does show that there's a small shed in the back that encroaches, and there is an easement, there appears to be potentially an overhang of the roof. Not wanting to play attorney, but I'm guessing that overhang has been there for over 30 years, and there may be, I guess what the attorneys call prescriptive rights, that they can continue doing that because we haven't asked them to slice off the edge of their room. But it's not a large overhang. The applicant wants to, you can look at it two ways, to shift the property line from what appears on the tax maps, or to really subdivide, as you face the property, the left-hand or south side of the property. The applicant wants to Right now, this property is 6,732.5 square feet. The proposed new lot, as you face it again, on the left-hand side of the house would be 2,434.5 square feet. The remainder lot that would contain the two-family and the paved parking lot to the right would be 4,298 square feet. The parking area on the right can accommodate four cars, two tandem arrangements. There's already a curb cut there. To produce a house on the left-hand side, the applicant would create one new curb cut for access to this house. If you look at, I guess the best thing to look at would be P4 for a moment. So the applicant has, from his own point of view, looked at the houses on the street and wants a house that kind of fits in. They're older, 1 and 2 families. I'll talk about that later, and there's also a multifamily down the street. But initially, the applicant was looking to preserve on the new lot both minimum 5-foot side yards. The result of that is a new house would only be 16, I think, 0.25 feet wide. So as part of kind of an alternate and an amendment to the application, the applicant would like to request, instead of a 5-foot northerly side yard for the new house, a 3-foot northerly side yard. And that means that the new house could be 18 and I guess 0.25 feet wide. It would be a little wider, could more easily accommodate modern living standards. The applicant is proposing, again, a subdivision, a new single-family house that would have 3 bedrooms, and a parking arrangement is shown on that diagram, where there would be 2 cars enclosed within the building and a 3rd car in the front. Although your ordinance requires 1 car per bedroom, that's different from the state regulations, RSIS, that requires only 2 parking spaces for a 3-bedroom house. So you're somewhat in conflict with the state standards, the residential site improvement standards, but despite that, the applicant is proposing 3 parking spaces, knowing that parking is tight on the street. The street's a one-way street in a southbound direction. The area is kind of a wide mix of houses, and I'll point, I guess we can talk about P5 for a moment. On that diagram, I've indicated the number of dwelling units. So first of all, I looked at the neighborhood as being within that blue area. The houses that are just outside to the north and south, they face Mill Street on the south and William Street. So they're kind of in a different neighborhood because they look in the other direction. But there are a number of 2 families in the neighborhood, a number of 1 families. They're closest to the subject property, as you saw from the photographs. To the rear, the 3 lots that abut us are 25, 25, and 30 feet. The lot closest to our new proposed lot is lot 27, which is 26.25 feet wide. And across the street, although the lots are larger, they're non-conforming uses there. There are the lots 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all owned in common ownership. The tax records show storage uses on lots 9. In fact, lot 9 was referenced on the assessment records as a scrap yard, and lot 10 was listed as a warehouse. So if you go further to the south, I'm guessing most of the board members have driven this, Cortlandt Street drops down in elevation. You have a large 12-unit multifamily that you can see on the tax maps. And then as you get further, the township owns one small lot, and then there's a 1 and a 2 family down on Mill Street. What I wanted to show with this diagram is, if I just look at minimum lot size in the zone and use, whether it's permitted or not, and obviously storage uses or a lot just for parking is not permitted. This lot is the only lot that conforms to lot area and use in that analysis neighborhood. So there's a high degree of nonconformity in this neighborhood. And as you know, the municipal land use law encourages towns to have zoning that has reasonable consideration to the character of the district. And this is a little bit introducing friction, because this is the only lot that currently comports with the use and area standard. And again, everything adjacent to this property is already developed, so it's not possible to expand the property. So after looking at the area,
You went to the master plan
I did,
consideration.
thank you. And your last comprehensive master plan is 2009. There have been several re-examination reports since that time. What I want to emphasize is that in analyzing Belleville in 2009, the master plan references what it considered weaknesses, and it said there were many vacant and underutilized parcels and distinctive signs of disinvestment. Now, this neighborhood is a pretty lively neighborhood. There's renovation going on in a couple houses further to the south. And it talked about the lack of new housing opportunities that appeal to the current market demands and contain access to the range of amenities and services customary of urban living. It did call for amendments to the master plan, and there have been no formal amendments, but there have been re-examination reports. That master plan also recommended there be a definition of tandem parking, and as you know, that was responded to by the governing body. They put in a definition of tandem parking. There was, of the planning goals in the 2009 master plan, one was to provide for residential growth at current densities and permit high density, and this is not necessarily high density in limited areas. On that diagram I showed you, and I put this at the bottom on page P5 of A1, if I looked at the acreage in that blue analysis area, the density is 20.2 dwelling units per acre. The 2 units plus the 3rd unit on our property would result in a density of 19.4 dwelling units an acre. So we're pretty much in line with the existing density in the neighborhood. And that doesn't take into account that there are some lots that aren't even in residential use. I still included that acreage in calculating density, because there's some lots there that are just used for parking purposes. The master plan also talked about re-examination of the parking requirements. So, as you know, this is in a fairly new creation, the RC zone, and it has different standards for different uses. 1 and 2 family homes are required to have a minimum lot area of 5,000 square feet and 50 feet in width. Triplexes are required to have a minimum lot area of 7,500, so if we were a vacant lot, we still wouldn't be permitted a triplex on the property. And then other uses, it starts out at 10,000 square foot minimum. So we need, again, the two-family house is proposed not to change, but we are proposing to subdivide a lot on the on the south side of the property for a new single-family house. We initially were going to conform to both side yards of 5 feet, but we would request an amendment so that the interior side yard would be 3 feet. That means that we can still have windows. The building code doesn't say, you know, allows us to have windows, but in a sense, we're requesting a variance internal to the subdivision. So from the point of view to the 20.2 units per acre, and we're proposing with the 3 units, although on 2 properties, 19.4 units per acre. I talks about an aesthetic, in promoting aesthetics. I wanted, because I forgot something, I want to jump to the last page, if I may, of my exhibit. Every application is on its own, you know, what the planning board, or what the Board of Adjustment doesn't obviously bind you, but you have a provision in your code that says where you, and this is kind of runs to the negative criteria, that where you have an existing 25-foot wide lot that's isolated, you can have 3 feet setbacks on either side by right. You can have a front yard of 15 feet. So, and on page 6 is an approval that was granted. On the lower right-hand side, there's, you know, a green patch, which was a 25-foot wide isolated lot. The house that was built is a nice-looking house. It's a little taller than the adjacent houses, but that's a 19-foot wide house that was granted. And again, at least your ordinance says where you kind of stuck with a 25-foot wide lot, you're entitled to rely on 3-foot side yards rather than the full 5 feet. And I wanted to show this, again, it doesn't bind you, but it shows at least what is acceptable in some circumstances when variances were granted. Now that went to the Board of Adjustment because there was no subdivision, it was just dimensional variances. So one of the other, so I think that there is certainly an aesthetic value to putting a new house on the subject property. And again, the applicant provided me a photograph of the design that he happens to like, although I'm sure the applicant is flexible about what the new house would look like. But he felt that a house that was lighter in color, and again, to accommodate the parking requirement, which a lot of the other houses can't meet, he would want to do 1 garage space, parking in front, and 2 inside the building in a tandem fashion. Finally, purpose M talks about more efficient use of land. The applicant has invested his time and money in the existing 2-family house. He likes it, he likes living there, he likes the neighborhood, he wants to stay there. But he wants to take advantage of this oversized lot and build a new house for himself, at least on one side. And to preserve that existing dwelling, in my opinion, is more efficient use of land. And again, if we tore down everything, we're not entitled to, you know, a triplex. We don't have enough land for it. But in my opinion, by having 4 parking spaces for the 2-family and this new design, I think it can be accommodated in the neighborhood. So in terms of the negative criteria, so back to the beginning, I think there is an element of hardship and practical difficulties simply because of the character of the neighborhood and the misfit of the existing zoning with what's there. Number two, I think there are at least 4 purposes of the municipal land use law that are advanced, which substantially outweigh the detriments. In terms of the negative criteria, and this is going to be a repeat of some of the stuff, there's a high degree of nonconformity in the neighborhood. This is the only property that complies today in the immediate area with the size and the use requirements. This property was originally 2 lots. I'll grant you that it's in common ownership now, but the applicant gets 2 tax bills. They're treated as separate lots by Belleville. When the new RC zone was established, in my opinion, the governing body recognized that there would be some strain, some hardship on existing smaller lots, and that's why you have a special provision in your code that says when you have a 25-foot wide lot, that you can have reduced side yard setbacks, because they wanted, I think, to accommodate a reasonably sized dwelling. And so this applicant is requesting 5 feet conforming on the left side facing the house, but a reduced from 5 to 3 on the right-hand side as an option. Again, returning to the master plan, this area has a radical change because of the RC zone. Obviously, it was intended to encourage new development. This is a street not made up of triplex. It's mostly 1- and 2-family homes, although there is one 12-unit garden apartment on the property. And in my opinion, visually, once this is built, I think you could ride down the street and feel comfortable that this fits in with the neighborhood. It's not a jarring change from what's there. I think it fills in a gap. Across the street is essentially a parking area that, according to at least the assessment records, was used for storage like a scrap yard and warehousing. I don't know if those uses have been abandoned, but clearly, in my opinion, building a new house in this location is not going to be substantially detrimental to the public good and would not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the land and zoning ordinance.
Just a couple of questions. In your study area, you determined that this lot, if used for 3 dwellings, would still have a lower density than all the other homes, or lower than the average density of the other homes in your study area?
That's correct. Again, the numbers were at the bottom.
21 to 19 or something like that?
It's 20.2 is the current density of the area, and this would result in 19.4 units, a little lower.
So it'd be slightly lower than what your study area reflected, even if this additional unit was allowed to be put on the property?
That's correct.
And you indicated they still get 2 separate tax bills. There's still a 20-foot lot on the right as you look at the property.
Yeah, lot
tax bill.
They appear as separate lots on the tax maps, and the applicant does get separate tax bills.
And you talk about a triplex. Now, a triplex, I thought you said, would require 25-foot frontage total, so...
Well, it doesn't have to be on separate lots, but your ordinance defines a triplex as one of the permitted uses, but it's essentially a townhouse, 3 townhouses together. And at least my observation is there aren't any such townhouses on the street, so it would be out of character.
And this property doesn't have enough square footage to comply with the triplex requirement.
Right, even if it were a vacant lot, you would still need relief to get a triplex in.
I have no further questions to this witness, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you. Anyone have questions?
So regarding the existing building, how many bedrooms is that? How many bedrooms or dining rooms?
I believe there are 3 bedrooms in each unit.
Dining room?
I think we should ask the applicant that question, if that's okay.
Since he lives there, he knows better than I do.
Chris Bowen?
So the question is, there's three bedrooms on each floor, and a small bed.
Okay. It's a separate room, or is it an open
It's
space?
kind of an open space. House is about 20 feet wide, so kind of you go right into the kitchen, and you go right into the
So, one of the rules is, before we do a subdivision, is that we can't cause any hardship to the existing property, which is why I asked that question. So we you can't break the parking requirements in order to create another lot. I mean, we're taking one lot that doesn't have any hardship, and we're creating two that will have a hardship.
Well,
No, we're not changing the parking, I'm sorry.
I know we're not, but there will be a hardship because of that. You have 4 parking spaces right now.
Right.
You need a minimum of 6 if I don't talk about the requirements for dining room and stuff to happen. And I know it is an existing lot, existing property, I should say, but we are separating and creating a brand new scenario for the whole block. And that block, you can't park on both sides of the street, you only have one.
But,
So it's
well,
a difficult situation.
the standard, as I understand it, is not, well, there are certain proofs, and in my opinion, there's both a hardship situation and a benefits that substantially outweigh the detriments. I don't want to, fight with the town, but the state law supersedes your code, and we conform to the state RSIS requirement. But with our new house, we're going further than that. We want 3 parking spaces, even though the state law says we can rely on 2 and 4. So, but we don't want to touch the 4, we comply it, and the state says that we're entitled to rely on that standard, but we're going overboard because we know parking is an issue with a single-family house.
Yeah. Well, that's just on that. That would just be on the existing house. So, yeah, I get that. But the other lot, either way, you'd have a lot of variances with the little house lot.
Well, you're taking actually a parking space away from the front of it by building that, so, even though you're doing 3, you're taking a parking space away, even though the state law says 2, then that third, based on ordinance, what is that third car park on the street where there's no parking?
Well, we're proposing 3 spaces, so if you say that 1 space is being removed for the driveway, the answer is there's no change. We comply.
Right, I understand, but when you said the state said overrules by it only needs 2, right, that's what you said.
Yeah, the state says that we're entitled to rely on the requirement of 2 spaces for that and 4 spaces for the 2-family. Now, I'll leave it up to your attorney to advise you, but my understanding is that the RSIS standard trumps local regulations. We're entitled to rely on it.
And then my assumption is when the applicant moves to the new, I think that's what.
Yeah, that's his plan.
His plan to move to the new, that's gonna give, like Mr. Banda said, the 2-family is gonna now require 6 spaces.
No, it's the same argument.
I know.
We have 4 spaces now that are functionally adequate for the 2-family, and that's all that's required by the residential site improvement standards.
I totally understand the rules and regulations, but I'll be blunt about it, this is my feeling, is when you start 10 parking, or even if you have a single-family garage today, and the way they're built, 10, 12 feet wide, and you have a family, you're gonna pull in, you can't open the doors. So you're not gonna use the parking, you're not gonna use the garage accordingly. Just like when you look at the other, especially when you rent out the other building, or the other house, now you can possibly have 6 cars. And again, now the parking is becoming my concern, number 1. And then the rear setback. Do we have is there an ordinance of rear setback?
There's only a 10-foot rear yard setback,
Right.
so we comply with that.
No, it's 25.
25. Ours is 25.
Minimum lot size is 50.
Let me look at the rest.
Brian, what's the minimum square footage per lot in this zone?
That zone is 50. So it's 50 by 100, so it's 5,000 square feet.
Be 5,000 square feet.
And this one's gonna be 2,400?
Yeah, so that's smaller than our Silver Lake lots.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So, I mean, it's a beautifully sized lot. I'd love to have a lot that size. And I mean, to me, I think we're creating more hardship for the owner and the block by doing it this way. I'd rather grant variances on a new triplex than this situation, this scenario. The house is dropped dead center on the property. And the one that you compared, the Oriama one, that was on the other page, that was a pre-existing lot, different owners, different this, different that.
As I said, it doesn't bind you at all, but I just wanted to say that the governing body said that you could build this kind of building on a 25-foot wide lot, and the implication is there's no detriment to the surrounding area because it would be 100% conforming.
Can I just respond to the triplex issue? You're suggesting the triplex means knocking this house down for a man who's lived in town for the last 8 or 9 years, who wants to build his house on this lot, whose house would be consistent with the houses in the neighborhood. You're now asking him to knock it down and go through a tremendous amount of expense to put up something that maybe he does not want to live in when he would like to be there with his wife and 2 children in a one-family house. That's the issue here. And we're not looking for something that's different than what's in the neighborhood. This is completely consistent with what the neighborhood is.
So then,
As Mr. Steck said, the density, actually, if approved, would be slightly less than the average density in the area.
the area of the block.
Yeah, doesn't that,
That his study area.
yeah,
That's
but
study area.
the study area is whatever you picked it to be.
So even
Well,
if it's just,
it's
listen,
a-
even if it's just a
So
block
if you
area.
included the study area with the properties behind it, which are not included,
It would,
the density might have been
Even,
different.
even so, even if it was just that block, that condo building kind of screws it all. And that's a remnant of the old RC district that allowed
but I even included lots that don't even have any houses on them. I include just lot that was used for parking as acreage. So I think it's, you can disagree, but in my professional opinion, this is a reasonable area to analyze it. You can disagree, of course.
I mean, the parking lot or even the warehouse, that's 110, the parking lot's 63, the guy who owns the parking lot owns the house next. I mean, listen, this whole side could become, if in the future, could become conforming to the zone. So we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, which one of them could actually be taken down if this guy decides to build anything. So we only have 3 that are 26 wide, and you're proposing a 24 wide. So you're less than 20% of the whole block is what you're comparing it to. Like I said, it's a little tight. I don't want to hurt the owner, obviously, and he still has a home. He's not living somewhere. But to put extra pressure on the neighborhood by doing this, put pressure on both houses or both lots that we're creating in a neighborhood that only has parking on one side of the street. I mean, it's.
Mr. Bannon, if he's going to have 3 spaces for his family, a one-family house, him and his wife and his 2 young children, I don't see how that's creating pressure on the neighborhood. The issue here is parking.
Well, it's not just the parking,
It's a
it's also
street.
the rear yard setbacks. It's the side yard setbacks that you want to do 3 and 2, it looks like.
No, 5 and 3. So from the point of view of the neighbor on the left-hand side, this is going to look like a conforming house.
Were the neighbors notified of the subdivision?
Yes, everyone got the 200-foot
None
notice.
of them are here?
I don't believe any of them are here.
There's no difference. The people on
They're
that
all-
side
So
are my clients for the
they're all
next case.
okay with it? They're all,
And you're
so
both-
I mean, if
everybody's
they had a
familiar
problem
with
with it, they would be here.
Well, presumably, if they objected to this, they would show up.
They would be here, yeah.
The other thing is, obviously, Mr. Goins was talking about a plan. If the board would be more comfortable seeing a architectural plan, my client is willing to provide that. Obviously, with this subdivision, we didn't think that was necessary, but we certainly respect his opinion that he would not like to vote on this kind of a matter without seeing exactly what was going there. And we have no objection to adjourning and bringing back that plan.
I have a question for our attorney. Does the state statute supersede the parking or the municipality? This is the second time this has been brought up that we have a parking standard and the attorneys come in and say, well, the state standard is this. Well, we're not the state.
No.
Is our municipality?
Yeah, your ordinance is entitled to its own request for a variance from your own ordinance. In other words, if the person doesn't comply with one, but does comply with the other, then they're asking for a variance from one or the other. In this case, it's actually not even an issue really in this case because they're complying with the 3 spaces. So it's really not.
But it's the
an
second
issue.
time I've heard it
Yeah,
brought
but
up
they would
that-
be asking for a variance from your ordinance, but they're not asking for it in this case because there's not a need for it.
There's an existing condition, we have a 2-family with 4 spaces instead of the 6, so it's an existing condition not changing, but we're complying with your ordinance, which is more restrictive than what I consider the state mandated RSIS.
So you're using the state one for the 2-family home that's already there, and you're conforming with ours for the new home you want to build?
Yes.
Basically.
We're conforming to the state standards for both properties, but we are being more restrictive in adopting your code for the new house.
So the question I have is, just to go on your coattails, Mr. Venero, Attorney, I'm sorry, does the state ordinance overrule us?
They act side by side. If you have somebody who doesn't comply with one but complies with the other, they have to ask for a variance from whichever one they don't comply with. So in some cases, a town's ordinance might be less restrictive than the RSIS. That doesn't mean they get to only use the town's ordinance. They have to ask for a variance or a waiver for each.
So say someone comes in, they have a conforming lot, they build a conforming house except for the fact that they don't have enough parking based on our standards, they come to Frank to do that. And Frank says it's a variance, so it would be a variance, they'd still have to go to the zoning board for approval.
No, the planning board.
That would be a planning board.
It's
Single
only
family, I go single family.
No, it's
I think
only
goes to
really,
the
you're not really going to the zoning board if it's an otherwise compliant use, doesn't have an FAR or density issue or height issue, like you're coming here. So it's just,
Right.
if somebody just needed a parking.
It's a bulk standard, right?
Yeah, it's about
So
one or
that-
two families usually go to zoning board, and for both.
The
For
theme
bulk.
of the
That would be a
RSIS
bulk,
is
that
that,
would be a bulk
and
standard.
I'm going to leave this up for the attorneys to argue, but a developer is entitled to rely on the RSIS standards. If they require a 48-foot right-of-way, just even if your local standards say, oh, I got to be 50 feet, the applicant is entitled to rely on the RSIS standards. We don't want to fight with you. That's why the new house will comply with your standards. But my understanding of the law is that an applicant is entitled to rely on the RSIS standards.
And the only reason I bring it up is our code does say that we do have to make sure that there's no hardship based on our rules created on the existing lot, the one that's not going to change. So that's why I bring that up, and that's where my
Understood.
concern comes in.
Well, that's still
As well as some of the other stuff in the
Yeah,
smaller lot.
That is in some ways happening with other, I mean, there's no way around it with this case, but once you're doing this, you're now creating
Well, I don't know
a
what's in the other
shorter,
building.
well, you're creating a shorter side yard for the
Yeah.
dominant house.
Yeah, so it's...
And it's like, hi.
Well, well, my point is only that you have, right now, the side yard is bigger because it's only a 20-foot lot, right? On the smaller lot, it's only a 20-foot lot.
Well, no, the proposed lot is
25.
Right.
26.
The current lot is 20.
It would be 26, and then it would be 10, it would be 5 and 5.
We're
The house would
basically,
only be 16 feet.
there's a 20-foot wide lot on the right-hand side. We're eliminating that and putting a 26 and a fraction
Yeah.
foot wide.
Yeah, no, I see what you're doing. They're basically swapping where the lot...
The house is either going to be 16 feet or 18.2 feet.
Yes.
Mary Ann,
That's
can
how
I
I
ask
see
you a
the
question? I just want to ask the parent, because I'm a little confused with some of the, what is the rear yard setback for this section? I think there might have been some...
I have it as 10 feet, and the 10 feet is also listed on the applicant's
So 10 foot is...
table. That may be a remnant of that that zone.
10 foot, I think, is for that special use, might have been churches. We have, I just looked at it now, actually.
Okay.
We have, so it's 25. For
It is 25.
actual duplexes and triplexes.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? I just looked at the subdivision sketch, 26.25 width.
It's current,
Of
is
that
what
lot.
it's
That's
going
the
to be.
new lot.
The
26.2.
lot that exists to the right is 20 feet. But this, that's the one that the tax bill comes to that. But the proposed lot is 26.25 feet. That's what's submitted, that's the application that was submitted. And again, the side yards are 5 foot compliant and 3 foot non-compliant. And that is on the interior part, as Mr. Steck explained, adjacent to the property, the home that my client owns.
I think that was corrected in the last ordinance amendment, because the standards were for churches and other uses.
Okay.
And this was added in.
That's
And
what
this
we're-
application preceded that. So that's why this says 10 and their table says 10, because at the time it was 10, now it is 25.
So it's 25.
No, the application,
It
each
came in
time of the
before that.
application.
Oh, okay,
true.
thank you.
But they'd have to
That's
put another
true.
application in for the house anyway, so
I'm sorry, Brian?
they'd have to have another
So
application
it's
for the house itself.
25 foot now, but at the time the application was filed, it was 10
It was
foot.
10.
Right.
It was really an error, I guess, but it was corrected, right?
I just want to make sure, somebody's got to write this down later on. I got to understand it in order to do it.
Stop making changes.
We're trying not to kill everybody.
There's been a lot of changes in zoning ordinance available in the last 4 years.
The placement of the new proposed lot line establishes a 3-foot setback from the existing house to the new line. So that would be an additional variance that was created. And then parking has been discussed, but there's also another minor situation that comes up with the parking, because the current ordinance requires a half-a-foot distance from any driveway to the property line, and the way the existing lot is designed, it comes all the way up to the edge. So, the board looks at the entire property now with this application, and not just the new one. So you'd look at the existing conditions, and they might be pre-existing, but that lot is getting smaller, and the parking is still now less than half a foot off the property line. So those are the types of things that are raised in the report, maybe things to think about.
It's not less than a half foot, it's 3 point something.
No, the parking,
The existing pavement is right up to the fence, and we'd be happy to take 6 inches off of it. Shouldn't.
I just wanted to,
Yeah,
since
understood.
we're talking about variances and things, I just wanted to make sure that I pointed this stuff out.
We think alike.
Okay, any of the public have any questions? Mr. Sheldon?
Michael Sheldon, 47 Floyd Street. To start off with, just so that we're all on the same page, when setback distances are measured, setbacks are measured from property lines, correct? Setbacks are measured from property line, okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we're all in agreement with that. All right, so let's suppose you have two adjoining houses, and let's suppose that you have the minimum setback distance of 3 feet in place. Now, those two houses are equally separated, spaced about that property line. If there's a 3-foot setback, that means that this house is 3 feet away from the property line, and this house is 3 feet away from the property line, which means that at an absolute minimum, those two adjoining houses have to be at least 6 feet apart in order to satisfy the 3-foot setback. Now, what has just been explained here is that this internal setback is only going to provide 3 feet of space between the existing 2-family home and the new house.
That's
So
not
how
correct.
how
That's not correct.
That's not exact. That's
You
not
said there
correct.
would be a 3-foot space between the new and the...
Just to clarify it, from the new property line, the existing house will be at the closest point 3.4 feet from the new property line. So the reason it's 3 feet is magic is that when you're less than 3 feet, the building code kicks in terms of fire rating. So right now, there's, there's 30 feet, but when we draw the new property line, the existing 2-family will be over 3 feet from the new property line, and we're proposing our new house to be, as an alternative, 3 feet. So it would be at the closest point, 6.4 feet between the houses.
Okay, I'm relieved to hear that, because I must have misunderstood you. Earlier, when you were talking about how the distance between the two properties, Mr. Pullman's buildings, I thought you said there would only be 3 feet between those two buildings.
No. I did say on the existing 20-foot wide lot is very close to but that's on the other side of the property. We're eliminating that lot line.
All right. I appreciate that clarification. I just want to go on record and say that I completely share the concerns of Mr. Banda and Mr. Graziano about the parking situation here. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but under the new zoning, isn't front yard parking, I think it was even prohibited with the old zoning, but front yard parking is not allowed in any zone. So
It
By
is
how-
allowed in front of the garage.
That's not considered front yard parking to
But
have?
you're permitted to park in the front yard when it's in front of the garage.
All right, well, I just see that as a matter of practicality, I saw the site plan and the house appeared to be about, it's going to be about 16 feet. And-
20 feet back.
Well, the new house would be you're trying to get 18, but it initially looked like it was going to be about 16 feet in width.
The house will be back 20 feet, which means
I'm talking about the width of the new house.
the
width of the new
house would be, if no variances for the side yard are granted, I think the house would be 16 and a fraction feet wide.
Right.
If the variance would be granted, it would be 18 and a fraction feet wide.
Right. Well, in any case, whether it's 16 or 18 feet, doing this tandem thing, especially inside the building, you have to be cognizant of the fact that car doors, require space to open them. And you're dealing with the building, when you start to subtract, obviously, the thickness of the wall. So nominally, you say, let's give you the benefit of the doubt, the house is 18 feet wide nominally, but you have to subtract out now the width of the walls themselves. So you're going to start probably losing at least a foot, maybe a little bit more of that once the framing and the sheetrock and the vinyl siding, everything else is in place. So you may have no more than 17 feet internally, and then you have to deal with
Madam Chairman,
rooms and staircases. This is why Mr. Guyan made a good point that he should have an actual building plan in front of him.
next meeting showing how wide it is.
Do you have any other specific questions?
Well,
They're gonna bring in plans at the next meeting, so we're gonna be able to see
So
those distances.
there
that
was a
you're
concern
referring to.
expressed earlier that this application tonight is just not to deal with changing property lines. It does say in the verbiage to also to give permission to construct a single-family dwelling, and I think this is the basis why Mr. Guyan said that it would have been expedient to have an actual building plan in front of you so you could see how all of the logistics were going to work out. So I hope that this matter might be adjourned until such time that a plan is presented to the board.
The applicant is suggesting that that's what they're willing to do.
We are willing to do
And
that.
that's what there won't be a vote on it tonight, then there'll be a plan submitted. But in the meantime, do you have any other
That's it,
Okay.
I'm glad that
All
the
right.
plan will be submitted then, thank you.
Any other, Mark Brandon?
I have a question.
Since we're talking about bringing plans back in, one of the questions in the report points out that there's a setback on the street. Generally, most of the homes are set back, at least on either side, around the same distance. The proposed new home is set back a lot more than the others. I just want to know if you can consider looking at options where the building is set back the same distance. Maybe all the parking is inside, because the character of the neighborhood is not to have that kind of parking in the front of the house. The two homes on either side of the proposed home do not have a garage door in the front. So that would be different. But it would be even more different and more inconsistent to have the garage door and the house situated further back. It would not fit in with the character of the neighborhood that way. So I would like you to think about considering that and putting the three vehicles inside if that's something as well. So this is the time to bring that up, and I just wanted to kind of put it out there as well.
Any other comments on the proposed drawings by the architect?
Does the public have any comments? Board members? No. So I guess we're in.
Do you think they should come back, or do you want to
Yeah.
take a vote?
Can I carry on?
Well, I just had a question for Mr. Van.
Well, you're interrupting. Right now, we're in agreement that you will be coming back with plans.
I am in agreement. I think what Mr. Venero is indicating, that maybe no matter what I came back with, there would be difficulties. I hope that's not the point.
Right, I just
But
have a question for Mr.
that's his
Bennett.
question.
Do you think it's prudent for him to come back?
If,
Is
it
it worth your
depends on the
consideration?
sentiment of the board, I wouldn't wanna waste anyone's time if that's the case. I mean, if you did come back, we need plans on both, and I'm not sure we'll be satisfied, so it depends on how the board feels, on that matter alone, so. I don't know what you think, Patty, but that's just, I think that's in all fairness.
Absolutely.
To the applicant and to the, you know.
But our attorney, the attorney's saying that we will do this on the next meeting. We will submit this.
We are prepared to draw plans. Mr. Venero is being courteous in a way to say, don't waste your money if you don't have any chance of getting an approval. What we're looking for, and I think Mr. Banda kind of said that, what do the board members think with regard to this application if there were plans that satisfy you? For example, the planner's talking about changing the setback, or whatever other things the board is interested in, my client is willing to try to accommodate. Because as I said, he would like to live at this location in a one-family home.
So you might get a feeling of the board if this happens. What is the opinion?
I mean, but before you do that, technically your case is not closed.
My case is definitely not closed.
Right, so, I mean, if we were to, I think you're getting a feeling from the board as to what some of its concerns are, and it's your client who's gonna have the expense of having these plans prepared, which ultimately you would have to have anyway if you had the property built, but at the risk of knowing how some of the comments have gone back and forth tonight, that would be your client's determination as to whether or not the...
That's correct. My client is going to go and prepare the plans.
Right.
But, again, Mr. Venero was trying to
I
help in a way.
I totally understand what he was trying to do, and it makes a lot of practical sense, but I don't want to jeopardize your client's right to put in his full case if he so chooses.
Well, he so chooses because he's very interested in living there.
Okay,
So he so chooses.
So
But
I would be
certainly-
concerned about us taking a vote while his...
My concern is, are we happy with this, approving this? Does the actual house matter?
Right,
To me, it doesn't. You know, my decision is based on, you know, the lot.
Right.
So if they came with the Taj Mahal, it wouldn't affect my decision. And I just don't like,
I
I'm a
know.
businessman, I don't like wasting people's money.
I totally understand
What the board wants to
that.
do is up to them.
I agree with you on that, and from a practical standpoint, that's right, but I'm concerned if we voted now without his case being complete and giving him that opportunity, you know, that might be a violation of his rights under the MLUL to have a proper hearing. I don't want to go down, even though what you're doing is an attempt to save him money, and I totally get that.
I wasn't asking for a vote, I thought he was asking for a straw vote to see if there was anything that could be done with regard to the architectural plans that would satisfy the board members who seem to have extra
Everybody is understanding that those
concerns.
comments are not binding, and we're just doing this for the purposes of helping the applicant understand what the board's concerns are. I don't have any problem with that, but it would only be a straw vote, a non-binding straw vote. But certainly, if anyone on the board wants to make a comment on that, they're certainly welcome to do so. I just don't want us to be put in a position here where we're bound by comments that we've made here before we've actually taken an official vote. Obviously, we understand some of the people's opinions here, but if anyone else wants to voice any.
I mean, I guess mine's known, so.
Mine is also known.
But I mean, listen, we're taking one lot, we're creating two lots with hardships. I mean, we have a two-family house here that if he wants to live in it, there's nobody downstairs, you could convert it into a single-family house. Or you could, I mean, I'd be even more willing to look at plans for a triplex and have the property laid out, the building laid out properly on the property based on a more conforming version of the code. So when, if anything else, the future development, it kind of starts to fall in line with that rather than troll backwards and still have you know, make the whole situation on the street, as you said, things are all kind of all over and not conforming, we're just kind of making it worse. So that was my opinion on it. Again, just mine alone.
Whatever the situation, I do not want to close out the case.
Right, we're not.
I'm not looking for a vote. I want to leave it open to discuss it with my client as to what his options are and have the opportunity to possibly bring plans in.
Absolutely, that makes complete sense.
And that would be 10 days before October 13th?
We'd have to get them in, I understand that, otherwise it'd be a further adjournment, I understand that.
So, if anyone doesn't have any, you were talking, which,
Yeah, you need plans on both, because we need to know the hardship being created on the existing. And I only know
I'm
that
sorry,
through-
Mr. Gassion was, do we need plans on both, was my question here, on the existing house?
Well, we're not gonna provide plans on the existing house,
It'll be a
we'll
simple
provide
diagram.
plans on the new house.
There'll be a simple diagram of the existing, because we don't know if there's bedrooms on the inner wall.
We'll
You know,
we'll
It'll
put
be a simple
sufficient
diagram.
testimony in about what's in the existing house.
Simple diagram. Not extended plans, no.
Excuse me.
well, anybody else have any comments on this before we? No. So I think you can just,
Then I'd ask for an adjournment, I'll waive the time constraint.
yes, okay.
I'd like the adjournment to the next regularly scheduled meeting, knowing that maybe the plans can't be done, and I may have to ask for an additional adjournment.
I believe the next scheduled meeting is October 13th, so this would be adjourned until then, no further notice necessary. Time is waived, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm okay. Is Drive okay? Thank you. No one left.
Me? I'm here.
All right, we're here, PB 2206, 11 Brook Street. Are you ready?
Yes, we are. Just give me a second to switch spots.
Let's put on my other face.
While we prepare, we'll take a 5-minute recess, Billy.
20 versus 30. The witnesses you'll hear from are the member of Brook Street, and that's Fausto Jaquez, and Allende Matos, the architect and planner. I'd like to call Fausto. Raise your right hand.
Could I just get the spelling of your last name?
Jaquez. The first name is Fausto.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be to the best of your ability?
Mr. Jaquez, what is your home address?
6 Washington Avenue, Bloomfield, New Jersey.
And what is your occupation?
I am a contractor / real estate investor.
And are you a member of the Brook Street Partners Group?
I am managing member.
And you're the managing member, and does that group own 11 Brook Street in Belleville?
We do.
And what is on that property right now?
There is a vacant, abandoned single-family home.
And if you get an approval, will that be demolished?
Yes, sir.
And would you tell the board what approval it is you're seeking?
I'm seeking to subdivide the property into 2 25 by 100 lots so that I can build 2 two-families on it.
I have no further questions to this witness.
have questions.
Yes, sir.
No.
Pardon, I'm sorry.
You next.
No further, I have no further questions. I have another witness, obviously, my architect and planner. Okay. Allende?
Yes, sir.
Gotta be sworn.
Yes. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be to the best of your ability?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Your full name
Allende Matos,
and your occupation.
architect.
And have you testified previously before this board?
Yes, I have.
Based on Mr. Nero's record, remembering, obviously, Mr. Matos has testified previously. And I am also asking that he be qualified as a planner. So, Mr. Matos, are you also a planner in addition to being a licensed architect?
Yes, I am.
So, is it okay that he be qualified as both? Or do you want anything in the record with regard to his experience?
All accepted.
Mr. Matos, would you describe the existing site?
Sure. It's an existing 50 by 100 lot with an apartment house at the rear of the property.
And would you briefly describe the area surrounding the site?
Yes, it's mostly it's a mixed bag of different building types, apartment buildings, single family, multifamily, and what appears to be a commercial building as well.
Can you discuss the proposed subdivision plan of the property?
Sure. I'm going to walk over about the plans.
Now, the plan you're looking at, is that an exact copy of what's been submitted, or is there something different about that?
No, it's an exact copy of what has been submitted and what I have prepared.
Then please go ahead and describe the proposed subdivision.
Sure. So, I have prepared the architectural plans that you have in front of you, and I'm presenting here. There's a total of 8 sheets. T001, T002, A100, A101, A102, 103, 104, and 105. What you're looking at in front of us right now is the title sheet where we talk about the subdivided into 2 separate lots. We're calling them 11.01 and 11.02. The original lot number is 11, and we are proposing to subdivide the lot into two families, that's been said. We are looking for a front yard and a rear yard setback variances.
Mr. Matos, would you first describe the exterior of the proposed structure?
Sure. I have prepared these renderings, and we are showing a modern building. We're looking to do 2 similar houses that are mirror images of each other. We are following the architectural design standards for the SLR zone, and aesthetically we're doing a building that has some brickwork, some rain screen, siding, and stucco, and it has a modern feel to it.
Okay, can we mark that as A1?
A1 is going to be...
The renderings.
Yeah.
Anything further you want to describe about the exterior of the proposed structure?
No, I think a picture is worth 1,000 words, so the rendering describes that.
Then would you review the proposed parking?
Sure, so we are proposing tandem parking, parking inside the garage and 2 parking spaces outside in the driveway. We are proposing a total of 4 parking spaces, and what is required in this zone is 2 parking spaces. I know parking is a sensitive issue, so we're trying to provide as much parking as possible.
So you're providing
twice the number of parking spaces required, is that accurate?
That's correct, in tandem form. So one parking inside the garage, another one outside of the driveway.
So you've got 2 spaces for each building, is that accurate?
We have 4 spaces.
4 spaces for each building. Okay. I misunderstood what you said. Now, would you describe the first level? You talked about the parking, what else is on the first level?
Sure. So, I'm gonna focus on sheet A100. It's the 3rd sheet. And this sheet shows the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd levels. We're gonna focus on the 1st floor, which shows the tandem parking we're talking about at the front of the building. We have a set of stairs that takes you up to the next level. The way we have configured the stairs is a switchback to allow us to have more space to put in the electrical gas meters and to give us some room for opening the doors for the car. We're also provided a mechanical room, and what is a typo, which was a comment made in one of the letters that we got, it says new bathroom, but that's a storage space. In the rear of the property is a family room that is connected to the 1st floor unit via a spiral stairs. This is a family room, so we have a half bath, a toilet room, half bath, and the washer and dryer. So that will be at the rear of the property on the 1st level.
Would you review the next level up?
Sure. The 1st floor, well, what I just described is the ground level. The 1st floor, the floor above, is a 3-bedroom apartment. And we designed an open plan living room, dining room, and kitchen area. And we provided a bedroom at the rear, and the spiral stairs that connects us to the family room below. So this unit, it's a larger unit, and it would be combined with the family room at the rear of the garage.
And would you review the 2nd floor of the proposed structure?
The 2nd floor is very similar to the 1st floor in that it is an open plan living room, dining room, and kitchen. And we have 3 bedrooms and a total 3 bedrooms and master bedroom. But we've also added a washer and dryer instead of the spiral stair at that level. So that is a unit by itself, and it's not connected to anything else.
And how will the garbage be handled at this location?
So I'm gonna go back to the T001 drawing. At the rear of the property, you'll see that we designated to each one of the houses a recycling and a trash bin that will be enclosed as required for each unit separately. So that will be housed at the rear of the property.
Now, you talked about the variances, the rear yard and front yard. Can you explain why the buildings were set where they are and why the variance was created? You did mention it, but I'd like you to discuss it again.
Sure. So this zone allows for 0 to 10 feet front yard setback requirement. That would actually give us the 30-foot setback in the rear, so we would not require a variance. We also would not require a variance for the front, so the building will be in compliance. However, we wanted to add the parking because it's important, it's a sensitive issue, it's always important to have enough parking. So what we've done is we set the building back an extra 10 feet. So we lose the 10 feet at the rear yard and we gain the 10 feet at the front, allowing us to park in the front. So as a result of that, we require both the front and rear yard variances.
And those variances stem from the need or the desire to have an additional parking space over and above that which is required?
That's correct. We
And-
figure it's a good compromise.
And will you consider that a C2 variance and that the benefits outweigh any detriment?
I do.
And is there any detrimental effect at all on this property or this area as a result of the variance being sought?
No, I do not think so. I think it's a positive criteria here is I think it's met, and I don't see any detriment.
Did you have an opportunity to review Mr. Di Lorenzo's letter?
Yes, I did.
Any comments with regard to that letter?
I don't have it in front of me. So I don't have the specific, but I definitely saw the letter, and we comply with it. But I'd like to go over specifically just to go on record. Thank you. So I'll focus on the comments, which is the last page. Refuse area shall be indicated on the plans. We have done that. The required decorative block or solid fencing, we're providing solid fencing as a choice, most likely white vinyl fencing. In terms of the item number 2, the seepage pit shall be provided. We have provided, and they're shown on the plans. We've also added the calculations for it. Item number 3, landscape and streetscape standards. We are following. We have that on the cover sheet as well. Number 4, applicant shall follow the architectural design. That we have that as well, shown on the plans, and we will follow. We will follow that advice, and of course, item number 5 we'll do as well.
Okay, and did you have an opportunity to review Mr. Hurd's letter?
I do have a copy of that.
That we got.
Yeah, I have a copy. Yes.
Please comment on that.
All right, so I am going to focus on the general comments and considerations. So, the first comment, it basically says the same thing as Mr. Di Lorenzo's letter regarding the landscaping and streetscaping, which we're going to follow the standards. The applicant shall provide testimony as how their design meets these standards. So, in terms of landscaping, we are providing shrubs along both sides of the property, and we're providing trees for each property at the front as well. And we have basically pervious surface grass at the rear of the property. There's not a lot to work with a 25 by 100 lot, so we're providing as much greenery as we can. So that's how we are addressing that. In terms of site considerations, preliminary grading plans, we have included that on this application. And the seepage pits, I spoke about that before. We're connecting all the roof leaders to the seepage pits. The item number 2, the handling of the garage space, parking, refuse and recycling, etc., with 2 tenants shall be discussed. The area opening of less than 15 feet appears inadequate for 2 vehicles. We understand it's a very tight space, and so we decided to reconfigure the stairs to allow for the doors for a car to be able to open. It is a very tight space. We still think it works. We cannot provide a door that's larger than 15 feet. The actual space at the rear of the garage is 18.7. So it is practical. You can actually open it. It is by no means ideal. but it works. So, that's what we're proposing, and because of the configuration of the stairs, I think it's gonna work. So that's how we're handling the parking aspect of it. We talked about the area of refuse recycling, that's at the rear of the property.
The only thing left, I think, to discuss is item number 3 under site considerations, a question about an easement between the buildings.
So, okay, I don't think that is necessary, so what we did was, and I leave that up to the council to decide, but what we've done is, we did a mirror image of the property, so of both properties, so you can see, this is probably the best image, and what we did was, we have a 2-foot setback on one side and a 3-foot 1-inch setback. I know the previous application was talking about 3-foot setback. Technically, you cannot put any windows at 3 feet. You have to be at 3-foot 1-inch. It's a technical, caveat there. But what I did was I mirror imaged both houses so that there is 6'2" in between. So you'll have plenty of room. There is an option to put a fence in between the two properties and still have 3'1", or if the owner of the property, he might live in one of them, might sell one of them, or might keep both of them, rent them, but he might have a choice of not putting a fence in between the two. So there's enough flexibility there, but even if you put a fence, you have 3'1", which is enough room to be able to navigate garbage and, getting around the property. And so I don't think an easement is necessary.
I have no further questions of this witness.
Just so the board knows, they built these same things like on Heckle Street. They did provide an easement because just to get stuff in and out from the backyard to the front, there was an easement between the houses.
Obviously, we have no objection to doing it, but there's a difference of opinion between Tom and my argument. And I think 3 feet, being subject to 3 feet, you can get in and out.
Yeah.
The materials, what materials are you going to use? I like the drawing, and I would just like to make it a condition of, if it is approved, that it looks like this is a finished product. If you could discuss what you're going to, what material.
Absolutely. So what we're doing is, in this case, I know there was a mention about my previous application in my house. There's a lot of differences there. There's actually, the style is similar, but there's a lot of difference between the houses. But what we're doing in this case is we're using a dark brick at the base. If we want to create a solid base, perception of a strong house. So we're doing a solid base, dark brick, and we are going with dark black windows, which is very popular these days. It gives you it helps with the modern house, and even traditional houses that want to give a new look, a more modern look, are going with black windows. So that's the intent here. And so the background is going to be lighter. We're going to use a light siding on the sides of the house at the back. The front is going to be, above the brick will be a stucco face, stucco finish, smooth stucco finish. And then the accent bump out will be a rain screen, which it's a material that allows water actually to run behind it, not penetrate the building, but run behind it and come down at the bottom. This rain screen system can look like real wood. It could be made out of teak real wood, which is very expensive, but there's a lot of materials that are similar to wood, but it would have that natural look, natural wood look. And so essentially that's what we are proposing here.
Okay.
I do have a question. Is it a common backyard, like you talked about the easement between? Is there a fence between the yards?
So no. So the intent is to separate the two.
Okay.
So if they choose not to put a fence all the way down to the front. There will be 2 gates at the back corner here.
And then a fence.
And then a
dividing
fence divides the 2 backyards.
cool.
So it will be completely independent. This can, my client can keep both houses, live in one, rent it, or
Yep.
sell both houses, but, so they will be completely independent on their own.
Nice house.
Yeah, my only comment, I think, Tom, when they do the streetscape and stuff, can Mary Ann clarify the rules of the streetscaping code? Because it was a little rough, I think, for the Hackle Street application. She said they weren't exactly on point with what she had meant in her diagram or whatever it might be. So could she clarify with them or with you or vice versa? I don't
I
know.
think there was these houses so close to the trees and you couldn't even get in the house.
It's between the tree pits and the scoring, the direction, whatever it is, just let her clarify. She's supposed to put an update for
scoring
it.
was the way it was.
That's what I mean. And then she says, oh no, so, she just left, I actually forgot to ask her, but if you could just have her clarify for that, that's all. Not a big deal.
Are there any other comments? I just have a comment on your ground floor plan. For me, it appears that this could easily be converted into a studio apartment.
Maybe, yes, it could be, but that is not the intent here. In fact, what restricts us from doing that, from a technical point of view, Mr. De Lorenzo is here. What happens is, this unit here, because it's 3 stories, it's not a 2.5 story, it's 3 stories. Actually, the building code actually restricts us from technically being able to do that. So doing an apartment here will be legal, not only from a zoning point of view, but from a building department point of view.
But it does happen.
Right now it's happening while we're here.
She's talking about illegal.
So,
not
Yeah.
legal.
So legally, what we're doing is to aid with that, right? So you have three stories. So the code says this unit cannot share, these 2 cannot share this exit unless this unit has another means of egress.
Exactly.
So we're providing this means of egress through here as an alternative. That meets code, the building code. If this gets removed, then the agency that enforces the code, you're not an agency that can enforce these things, but the building department can enforce it. They can shut this thing down. So it's up to the client or the owner, whoever owns the property, they take their chance, but I would not be lying to you, this could be converted into an apartment, absolutely. But
In the back, it says window. Is that what type of, is it the door kind of window?
no, this is a window.
or-
This one here, that's a window. It's not a door, it's a double hung window.
There's no patio, nothing outside? There's no plans for anything like that, or?
No, it's all grass.
And there's only a half bedroom, a half bath in the basement.
Right, so that's another thing.
No, I mean, if there's a patio, listen, I understand that stuff can be used in any which way, but it's, for us to say, take it all out, and then what's to stop you from putting it in afterward anyway? I'd rather see the space used right, and if it's a family room off of a back deck, then you're gonna wanna do off the back deck. I mean, that was just my thought process, with a sliding door or something.
The problem with that concern that Pat's suggested, which is a normal concern in the developed communities in particular, like Belleville, Nutley, Bloomfield, you're now saying, wait a minute, don't build as nice a thing as you have proposed. And that's just not a good thing for the town itself.
I agree.
You want to draw people who are interested in nice units.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, people rent out bedrooms, they'll rent out sub-basements, and it doesn't stop anybody, we might as well go for something nice.
Plus, I see that the washer and dryer is shared, well, not shared, it's for the first floor.
Yeah.
Exactly,
So
and it's not on the second.
That can't
it's
be
not-
shared.
Yeah, so they would not,
They lose their washer and dryer.
they lose their washer and dryer, and they lose a nice space.
Yeah.
But the economic force, people make decisions because of finances. crazy.
How about, can we put it as a condition, no sleeping space in the?
Yeah, I think that,
Just to reinforce our zoning,
yeah,
like you said, it's
I like
nice
that.
the way it is.
Yeah, so
It's an enforcement issue, so we just reinforce the issue and say, on this application, no sleeping units permitted on the ground floor.
Okay. I expect, Frank, you out their back window every night.
And then it'll be the peeping Tom with the light.
Be like a ninja.
All right,
Being a
is there-
creepy dog.
Any further comment from the board? I'd like to ask the audience, if you have any comment? Mr. Sheldon?
Yes, Michael Sheldon, again, 47 Flood Street. One point of clarification. I know there are two buildings proposed here. Each building, is it a single family or are these two-family buildings?
Two families.
All right, because the agenda says construction of two new one-family dwellings. So I'm trying to reconcile this inconsistency. So these
That
these
was
are
my fault.
Okay, all right. So these are two-family, so a total of four residential units. Each one has 3 bedrooms, so a total of 12 bedrooms altogether. 6 bedrooms per structure, a total, 2 times 2 structures, 12, and you're providing 4 parking spots per unit, so a total of 8 parking spots altogether for the 2 buildings. I know this is in the SLR zone, and every time I think about this, I have to go back to the schedule to look up. Mr. Banda has this largely committed to memory, fortunately, but 8 parking spots satisfies the parking requirements for the SLR zone for these 2 structures?
Yes.
All right,
And
okay.
that's one of the reasons why he's asking for a variance, so he's making the situation better. I mean, the only thing he's doing is, he's doing a setback, which the neighborhood, most of the houses don't have more than 10, even on that street, but the trade-off is the parking, so if the board's okay with that, then so be it.
Okay, that's it.
That's
Thank
it?
you.
Any other? Mr. Tony?
Am I reading this correctly? It's a 50-foot lot that's been subdivided,
That's correct.
so each house is on a 25-foot lot,
That's correct.
2 families? Well, once again, I think that's ridiculous. And then the chair lady brought up the fact about living in the basement. You got within 200 feet of where we're all sitting right now, illegal apartments. One girl tells a customer of mine, renting 1 bedroom. Somebody else
This has
down the
nothing
hall
to do with
renting
this
a bedroom.
application.
In my house, within 200 feet of either direction of my house, I got 5 illegal apartments, basement, attic, and every time I complain, they say they can't go in there because it violates their rights. So why don't we design this?
We did, addressed it earlier, saying that it was going to be a condition. So the condition is that they can't do
The
this.
condition is difficult to enforce. Why don't we make him design something that's impossible to put a room in? You're right, Chair Lady.
Come on, how's
That's
it gonna be
so obvious.
impossible? How's it gonna be impossible?
Yeah, there's all kinds of
How would
regulations.
that be, how would it be listen, if you're a contractor,
Yeah, you would
you
know
know, if you wanna put an apartment in that basement, you're gonna do it, no matter what.
That's my point.
So that's your point.
Let him
From you
redesign the
stopping
building.
him, by you telling him he can't put a bathroom in his and on it's not the basement, it's the first floor, that you're gonna stop someone from putting an apartment in there. It's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
I know you lived here, I lived here 60 years. You're not gonna stop it.
And I'm here 56.
You're not gonna stop it.
All right, yes, you could stop it. Make him
Can't
build a
stop it.
two-story,
It's not up
two-family.
to us to stop
Make him
it.
build a two-story building. That stops it. First of all, you get him on a 20-foot lot, a 2-family house, it's ridiculous.
2
All right,
stories, what are you
can we
gonna do with
stick-
2 stories? The
Like I
taxes
said,
on that,
excuse me.
the taxes are probably $15,000 on that place. Maybe, that's
And-
low.
Money.
So how do you expect someone to live in this town and pay $20,000 for a 2-family and afford it? It's impossible.
Mr. Bovee,
Yes.
the argument I've been making for years, that kind of development is what increases our taxes. More apartments, more people, more demand for services, more
Obviously, I
storage,
object to this
more
testimony.
garbage.
It has nothing
We
to do with
pay-
this
So you're telling me
application.
you'd rather
All
see a
right.
vacant lot with
Let's go to this meeting.
No, first of all, I don't like the 25, but put one family on each one.
Excuse me.
We pay for storage by the
Mr.
gallon.
Mr.
I got a
We
one-family
pay for
house.
garbage.
I got a one-family house. My taxes are $13,000.
I agree with you, they're too high, but the
Yeah.
reason they're too high, we have
You
too
just have your
many
own
people in here demanding services. That's the whole bottom line. Did you ever look at the town budget?
I don't believe that.
Do you see what we pay for
I
garbage?
I'll agree with you. I think the taxes are out of hand here, but
But
it's
but
not
you gotta-
because of somebody
You
built
got
it.
your planners.
Excuse
You
me.
should
Let's continue
understand
with
the
the
reason
meeting
for taxes.
in the appropriate manner, please.
We are paying,
Please, let's.
Madam
stick
Chairlady, I
to
have no
subject
further
here.
witnesses. Case is over.
Okay, thank you.
we are paying for
I
all
get
these
it.
services, now that all these apartments, 4 apartments, and then you're gonna have 2 more basement apartments. We have more garbage, we have more services, more police reports, more fire, more death certificates, more birth
You're right.
certificates, more services.
I got
All right.
Don't allow these
One
buildings to
story.
be built.
storage shed, that's all you can live in,
Right.
on each property.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to have the opportunity to briefly sum up.
Please.
Madam Chair, lady, members of the board, this is a subdivision application to erect 2 new 2-families that are permitted on the property. The only variances that have to do with this property is because we're trying to add additional parking. Additional parking than that which is required. So by having the building be set back further, we create a front yard violation, but we allow 2 parking spaces in front for each of these buildings. We therefore push the building back and create a rear yard violation. Certainly, the benefit of adding 2 spaces per building outweighs any detriment. So it clearly is a C2 variance and one that the board should be able to grant. You got a beautiful new building. This is what the ordinance calls for. We're in compliance. We're doing everything in compliance except that which helps the situation for parking. So I thank the board for their time and consideration.
I make a motion for the approval of the application with the acceptance of Mr. Di Lorenzo, Mr. Harris' report, and the materials stated by the architect to make the condition of the application.
Do you want the basement thing to?
Nobody's sleeping in the
And
basement.
the
And the
condition
ground
to that,
level, it's a ground
the ground level will not be a sleeping permitted.
I second that.
Roll call. Chairwoman Nogarata.
Yes.
Mr. Banda.
Yes.
Mr. Bowe.
Yeah.
Mr. Graziano.
Yes.
Mr. Venero.
Yes.
Mr. Guyan.
Yes.
Approved, all in favor.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.